Friends, I don't know what's happening with the stock market, but I do know this, that normal, ordinary, everyday Americans all across the United States are being crushed by what's happening in the economy. We got two canaries in the coal mine that are going down right now. Housing, and we're seeing some major issues with healthcare. Now, if you've been alive with a pulse in America recently, you've heard your friends, you've heard your family members, you've heard people on this channel talking about both. Housing costs and healthcare costs are through the roof. And now we're seeing people are failing to keep up with their payments on their houses. We're seeing foreclosures spiking like we haven't seen for a long time, over 20% up since last year. And then we look over at healthcare costs. We see we're in the open enrollment period, so everyone on Obamacare is getting a wonderfully early Christmas present in the sense of a heart attack as they open up the estimates of how much they're going to have to pay next year in order to get health care for themselves and their families. This is absolutely devastating to the average Americans out there, and we need to talk about it. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and these are the things you just won't hear on the mainstream media. We're going to walk through some numbers. We're going to look at how bad things are getting, and we are going to absolutely pin the blame on certain people, okay? We're going to take the Obamacare blame, and we're going to pin it onto the people that did this to us, because it's been an absolute travesty, an abomination. Remember back when you were required to have health care and you had to prove that you had health care on every tax return? Everyone who gets to do the fun little chart of subsidies and getting equaled up with the federal government. Don't you just love the IRS being involved in your health care? Because that's what's happening out there. All right, so October foreclosures have jumped 20% as opposed to October last year. So we're seeing foreclosures jumping up big time. Completed foreclosures for October were up 32% over last year. We're seeing a bunch of houses getting dumped on the market by these banks that are foreclosing on people who can't keep up with their payments. Now, we didn't used to have this problem, right? I mean, the last 10 years or so have been fairly good with people keeping up with their mortgages. Interest rates were low, and people were getting good payments, and they were making decent money at work, and that's been getting worse and worse as the years have gone on. Now people are getting interest rates north of 10% on new mortgages, which is absolutely brutal. We haven't seen those type of interest rates in a very long time. Now, if you have a better credit, you're going to get a little bit lower of an interest rate than that. But some people are getting credit card-like interest rates for their mortgages. And people who think that they can keep up with those payments are getting crushed by it. We're seeing people on adjustable mortgages are getting devastated because they're hoping for the interest rates to go down, but they haven't gone down yet. We've seen a little bit of relief, but not enough. The previous month, in September, we're looking at a 17%, third quarter. The whole third quarter is up 17%. So not just 1 month at 20%, but the whole quarter, 17% up compared to last year, right? Foreclosures are not at critical levels yet, where we're going to start seeing banks collapse, but we are seeing where people are having their homes taken away from them, and we're having a lot of houses going up for sale in forced sales. This is going to drive the price of real estate down, so if you own a home, you need to be paying attention to what's happening in your market. That's why if you've been looking at the Zillow rates and stuff like that, you're starting to see estimates starting to slide. Foreclosures are hitting the market, and the buyers are disappearing. There's just not people buying real estate like they were before. Most of the foreclosures are mostly in these states: Florida, South Carolina, Illinois, and then Texas. This is where we're seeing the foreclosures happening rapidly. Right now, we're seeing about 4% delinquency rate on mortgages. So back during the worst of the worst, 2008, 2009 time period, the great financial crisis, we were looking at about 10% of mortgages were delinquent. Right now, it's 4%. So we have a long way to go before this whole thing bottoms out, but it didn't have to be 10% before the market started crashing in 2008 and banks were imploding. We saw some of these subprime mortgages rates, failure rates going up to like 6-7% before they started imploding. We're at 4% on all mortgages, so we don't know what it's looking like right now on subprime mortgages, and supposedly what happened to subprime mortgages can't happen again, but we have auto loan delinquencies. We have auto foreclosures or auto defaults, right? Subprime auto loan defaults, where they're coming and taking people's cars. Record level repossessions happening with people's cars. So, I mean, the American consumer is tapped out. The American family is not able to keep up with their bills, not able to keep up with their payments. Now, some people have taken on some ridiculous debt to have fancy cars that they can drive around in, pickup trucks that cost more than a house. If you did that, yeah, there's going to be pain. Consequences do follow stupid decisions. And if you're sitting on a sunny day and you look up at the sky and you say it will never rain again, and then you build something that doesn't have a roof, I mean, you kind of got it coming. I mean, we don't know when it's going to come and get you, but sooner or later, it's going to get you. And so as we have the financial system and the economy of the United States slowing down, people are starting to feel the pinch, and they're not able to keep up with their payments. One of the big things we need to talk about there, too, is the Federal Housing Administration. The Federal Housing Administration issues mortgages. 52% of all delinquencies across mortgages are actually Federal Housing Administration loans. So that should tell you a little something. Who's the Federal Housing Administration giving mortgage loans out to? And if you're just thinking about it real hard, and you're thinking about millions of people wandering into the United States and getting mortgages from the federal government, you are absolutely right, because that's exactly what happened. We have a whole bunch of people, undocumented people, getting mortgages by the federal government, and now 52% of all the delinquencies are by people who couldn't follow the rules about entering the United States. They can't seem to follow the rules on making payments on their homes. And are we going to see the Federal Housing Administration start doing foreclosures on those? We really need to. Of their all their mortgages, 11% of them are delinquent. 11% of all their mortgages. That's just one way for you to know that you absolutely stink at choosing who should get a mortgage. The fact that mortgages out there topped out at delinquency rates of 10% during the Great Financial Crisis, and here we are sitting in 2025, and 11% of the mortgages issued by the federal government are delinquent. Yeah, that just tells you how bad they are at playing private marketplace. They've been giving out loans to all the wrong people, and those people just aren't paying them back. All right, moving over to Obamacare, because this is a catastrophe that people are feeling the pinch of right now. I'm hearing people seeing their their healthcare insurance premiums double. Some people even more than that. We're seeing a lot of the subsidies have expired. We saw this abomination put into place in 2010, and not a single Republican voted for it. I think that's an important thing to just put out there right away, is that this whole thing was forced through without the 60 votes in the Senate. This whole thing was, they played games to put this monstrosity into place, and every single Republican voted against this thing. This is 100% the Democrats' mess. And they said, oh, it's going to be great. It's not going to require subsidies. We're going to have some subsidies just at the very beginning, and then it will be fine. It'll be great. Everyone will have lower interest rates, lower insurance rates, and there won't have to be any subsidies coming from the government. It's going to be a wonder of modern engineering. And turns out everyone's paying more than they would in a private marketplace. And then in addition to that, the federal government is being forced to keep subsidizing. Back in 2020, the Democrats came hat in hand, said Obamacare premiums are through the roof, and because of COVID, blah, 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 COVID, we need to inject tons of money. And then they came back in 2023 and asked, just 2 years ago, for another $64 billion bailout. How long was that going to last? Well, they're out of money. So $64 billion apparently lasted 2 years. So we're spending $30+ billion a year in subsidies for people's health care that is being basically all hoovered up by a few insurance companies. Now, Obamacare was designed supposedly in order to punish these big insurance companies, to make sure that they're not making more than their fair share. And yet we found in the years after Obamacare got instituted, these companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield and Anthem and all these big insurance companies, their profits doubled. You heard that right. The only persons making out good on Obamacare, other than the government officials that stuck that stuff in there, are the insurance companies that were making too much money in the beginning, now are making even more. Of the $64 billion, how much of that actually went to helping people? How much of that went to fat cats in Wall Street who own these insurance companies, right? $371 billion in profit for these companies since Obamacare was created. Their profits have over doubled actually. A study was done and they found that the profits were up for these insurance companies 230%. And that wasn't just a cherry-picked year, that was like the 10 years after. Profits up 230%. That's a big deal, friends. That's a big number. And yet we have the bailouts happening again and again. And that's what this shutdown was all about, was that the Democrats wanted another bailout for Obamacare. And Republicans said, you said those were temporary subsidies. You said that this could stand on its own. We're going to let it stand on its own. And people are going to see what it is. They're not going to be subsidized anymore. We're not going to just keep pumping money into this. We're going to let it stand on its own, and people are going to decide whether it's a good idea or not. Hint, it's not a good idea. It's an absolutely terrible idea. Reducing people's options while forcing them to buy more coverage than they want is not a good recipe. Remember back in the day that they were forcing people to buy health insurance. As a younger guy, I did not want to have health insurance because I knew that it was a scam on me in order to subsidize older retirees and such. So I didn't want to do that. I ended up actually finding the health sharing ministries, Christian health sharing ministries, because they got you exempted from the Obamacare fine, so it's cheaper to get the coverage from the health sharing ministries than it was to pay the fine for Obamacare. And I thought that was a good idea, so that's kind of what I did for a number of years. And then I just decided that I really hated private insurance companies so much that I'd rather go with the health sharing ministry over the long haul, and that's kind of what I did. But you just look at what insurance rates are, health insurance rates are for other countries, and it is night and day. Americans are paying massively more on health care. You look at countries, comparable countries, with higher life expectancy than the United States, such as Belgium, Luxembourg, Sweden, France, even Canada, they're paying roughly half what the United States is paying. We're paying about approximately $15,000 per American, not per American family, per American, per year for health care. And if you're like, how are we not going bankrupt? That's a good question. Whereas these other countries that I just mentioned, Belgium, Luxembourg, Sweden, France, Canada, all paying about $7,000 a year. Now that includes the government subsidies and all the payments that are happening there, whether it's just coming out of their pocket or whether it's coming out of their paycheck or whatever. But they're paying roughly $7,000 a year. We're paying $15,000 a year. That's how broken the system is. And Americans are being absolutely devastated by this. If you're being forced to have health insurance because you have a family, I don't know how you're not going broke. This is absolutely rough on everybody. And like I said, most of those countries that I just listed have 3 to 4 years life expectancy longer than the American life expectancy. Maybe we're doing things wrong. Maybe we're over-medicating, over-socializing our medicine. Maybe we're doing things absolutely wrong. And that is the best take on it I think we really can have. All right, friends, I'll keep you updated on these things as they go forward. But we are seeing that this open enrollment period for Obamacare, a lot of people are getting some really nasty quotes from their health care, whatever, portals. Anyway, if you go in there and you get a really, really high quote, it's because your subsidies from the federal government have disappeared, and now you're actually looking at how much your health insurance actually costs with no competitors in the market, no one able to compete against these monstrosities of insurance corporations. That's what it's looking like these days. And yes, you can get to use a different bathroom based on your health care plan. They'll cover all of those expenses, and you're covering all those expenses for other people. You're paying for all sorts of things that you probably don't like paying for, and yet you're forced to do so because that's what the monstrosity of Obamacare created. All right, friends, let me know down in the comments down below, do you guys have health care? Are you paying for health care through the exchanges? Have you found a way around that? What is going on with all that? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts about that. And do you think a lot of people are struggling with their mortgages, keeping up with the payments? All right, friends, thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.